Just go, just an opening statement on practice one, then we'll take questions.
Okay, great. Good first day. I want to start off by complimenting our strength staff, Dave McManus, and the job he did this summer getting these guys ready. They came out here. You could see that there was great energy. And you know what? They were flying around out there. The next one I want to give a huge compliment to is our training staff in Kellen Norris, because we came into camp with 3 guys limited. Everybody else was full go. I can't remember the last time I've gone anywhere into camp as healthy as we are. And my hat goes off to the job that Coach McManus and Kellen Norris have done preparing this football team all summer long. I thought this looked like an older team out there. I thought the tempo, as we always talk about and we preach, is a habit. Tempo is a habit, and you felt it out there. Not near perfect by any means. We know we have a long way to go, but today is a first day. I like the energy. I like the execution, but it was a good first day.
Questions for Coach?
Curt, when you look at this team, obviously they are an older team. They have a lot of experience. They have some expectation this year. How is this team handling their confidence level that comes with it? Because a lot of teams are different that way.
Sure.
They're older. Some of them are loose. Some of them are serious. How is this team handling it?
Well, we talked, we got an opportunity to talk about that this morning and meet as a team. And obviously that's been the main message. We have not done anything yet, and that has been the approach. And it's awfully nice to be ranked where we have been preseason. Certainly like being talked about in that light rather than being talked about and just trying to win the first game. And but I made it very clear to this team we have a long way to go. We've got a lot of development to do. We're not nearly ready to be able to play that first game. But you know what? We're in a lot better position this year than we were last year. I had the seniors that had been here when we were 0-11 with the average score of 50-10 to stand up. And they stood up this morning, and we made it very clear. Those guys are all in. And watch what they do. Follow those guys, because that's a perfect example of how this thing was built. We built it around those guys. And then we brought other young men in around them, and that's how it's starting to come along. But it's going to start with our leadership. I'm looking at that offensive line with 5 fifth-year seniors, a middle linebacker who's played an awful lot of football, a defensive end who's played a lot of football, a quarterback, although he may not have been here, he's in that light. We've got young men in this program that joined, maybe haven't been here, like a Ryan Boyle, who's in that leadership role. So those guys are going to set the tone.
You speak of that offensive line. I mean, it's great to have talent out there, experience. Have you ever had a line that you do with this much experience and been around that kind of thing?
I don't recall. I think maybe, probably the closest thing to it that I can recall is, our first year at the University of Michigan. We had a center, David Molk, who won the Remington, played a long time in the NFL. We had an experienced offensive line with Michael Schofield and Taylor Lewan, who are still playing, but yet they were still juniors, But never have I been a part of an offensive line with this much experience that are all fifth-year seniors.
They always say the game's won up front. I mean, you don't have to tell these guys they've been through it, but how much have you talked to them that they could dictate so much for you guys this year?
They are. You can see, 2 years ago, talking with, Coach Funk and the job he did, and how when Coach Switzer took over that they made that huge jump from really our year 1 together to year 2 to year 3. And you've seen these guys, 2 years ago, they were just a mirror image of what they are today. I mean, these guys have really done a great job in the weight room developing. A young man like Mason Fleckler probably has put 100 pounds on his bench press and has changed his body. And Wyatt Wozniak, same thing, James Lang. But those guys have put a tremendous amount of work in here and invested a lot to this program, and it's always going to start with those guys.
Curt, what do you want to see from day one to the run-up to the Kansas game? What's the main thing collectively you want to see out of these guys over the course of time?
Well, I think the main emphasis, obviously we always talk about ball security. We turned the ball over twice today. One was ball security with our quarterback, letting the ball hang out there on a quarterback pressure, and one was an ill-advised throw by Ryan in 7-on-7. Taking care of the football, I want to see 0 turnovers. I thought that was we knew going into it we were number 1 in the country, and that was a big part of our success last year. Taking care of the football. I want to see continued improvement in the pass game. We feel like we did some good things around the football. I want to see the improving day by day with our pass game. Defensively, we've got some guys that have played a lot of football. They just got better and continued to improve as the season went on last year. But we got a lot of younger guys that have to have more vital roles, where a guy like Jonas Griffith is not playing 85 to 95 snaps, that he's got some guys that can go in there. So our depth really more so, and seeing our depth develop in day 2.
You talk about the strength offensive line up front. Where do you feel defensively up front? What do you like about it? What are you most interested to find out over these next couple of weeks about that group specifically?
Well, right now, one of the 3 guys that'll be back here in a day or 2 is Noka Moala. And it was more of a precautionary having him back. Cade Perrott, who was finishing up a class today. Okay, so we really didn't have our 2 starting defensive ends. That's probably where we're the deepest with experience at the defensive end. And then as you look at it, too, I really like the depth that we have interior-wise. We came in to camp with 21 defensive linemen. I don't know if I've ever been anywhere where you came to camp with 21 defensive linemen. I know Brady Hoke would be proud of me. He was a guy that I learned from him. We had a bunch of D linemen, and it paid off for us. You can never have enough of those guys, and we rolled a lot of guys in when I was at the University of Michigan under Coach Hoke. But we've got numbers there, and we got guys that can fly around. And then we got some guys with length in the secondary. People look a little bit and say, maybe you lose a guy like Rondell Green, but we got some guys that have played a lot of football with some length back there.
Ryan last year was a quarterback getting comfortable with the system despite going to a Big Ten school. He had to adjust. He got better as the year went on, the offseason. He looked sharper today than a year ago at this time. He plays his potential this year. How much better will we see him?
Oh, I think he'll be much improved. A year ago today, that was his first time playing quarterback really in some meaningful reps since high school. Because when he went to the University of Iowa, he may have been a quarterback. How many reps was he really getting? And then he was moved to wide receiver, then back. So now last year was really his first time. Not only with that, we hadn't had an opportunity to coach him. And so a year ago today was really the first day we ever really got to work with him. He got to work with us, and he got to work at that position. As he got into a groove, then he had a setback about halfway through camp. Had a knee sprain, so he didn't start until the Eastern Illinois game. And next thing you know, he just started to evolve. And you saw that comfort level, that confidence that he had, not only as the season got longer, but more so in the off season and spring ball. So I see a much improved Ryan Boyle.
An area, of course, why you guys had so much success last year was because you were able to run the ball.
Yep.
I know you mentioned with Todd a lot. You want to try to improve that passing game, but specifically, you lose Jaquan and you had him out towards the tail end of last year, so you get Titus and Petey back.
Yep.
What are guys like Matt Sora and Chris Childers, who were names you knew about a year ago, and Nick Sims coming in?
Sure.
What do you like about that group to where you want to that you're not going to drop off of the production that you had last year?
Well, obviously Titus got a lot of good experience. He brings great energy. He's a very good running back, and he jumps in there, and you feel his presence there. And then from there, the two young men that I was most pleased with in the spring was Chris Childers and Matt Sora, because they were there every play, every snap, never missed a play. They were consistent. Really liked what they showed us last year. You can depend on those two guys. They've shown that maturity from year 1 to year 2, so I'm excited to watch them in the camp. Nick Sims was banged up a little bit in spring, showed signs, but anxious to see what he can do this camp as well.
Jonas, the last 2 years, I mean, not much more he can do out there. I know he's still hungry for more. What have you talked to him about, I mean, just accomplishing out there that he hasn't done so far?
Well, I think the big thing with Jonas is, he's the man in the middle right now. He's making a lot of calls. Last year was Cottrell, last few years. But he's got to be the guy that's taking command, getting the line set. And he does such a great job. And we talk about this young man off the field. As good a player as he is on the field, he's a better person off the field. And when your best players are also your hardest workers, I know it's a cliche, but you hear it every day. Our two best players being our hardest workers, our leaders, amongst other guys. You got Ryan Boyd, you got Jonas Griffith, and we got great leadership with the offensive line. There's other guys on defense. Those guys have got to lead this team, and that's what I've seen Jonas doing. He's a young man that's taken this defense. There's no question he's the voice of that group. And we've got other guys that have emerged, whether it be Kelvin Broom, whether it be Matt Thompson, guys that are starting to feel comfortable getting out and leading from the front. But really pleased with the way Jonas has approached it. We've moved from Will to Mike. Of course, that's not a huge drastic move, but he's handled it tremendous.
For fans to understand, they haven't had a lot of guys come through here to play at the next level.
Mm-hmm.
Give fans an idea, I mean, he has that ability. I mean, just describe what his ability is, I mean, going to the next level.
Well, I think, there's so many things involved in being a professional, and a lot of it has to do with being off the field stuff, and he brings so much, he's a guy you want out in front, and a guy you're never going to worry about. He's going to be one of your hardest workers. He's a great student, represents this program, but his ability, there's a lot of guys that have that ability, but he's one of the guys. I've been around guys like a Jay Lehman, who's in the Big Ten Network right now. Jay was like that. Jay was as good a player as he was off the field. He was an even better person, as good a player as he was on the field. He's better off the field. He was the total package. And but that's what I see in Jonas. I see his future, but he knows he can be so much better this year. We're counting on him to be a dominant guy. You felt him last year, but he's got to be that guy that just controls the game.